I'm sorry, Gwen.
Good morning and happy summer, school board. Well, thank you for the greeting. That's right, we can talk to each other. We got work to do for our children. My name is Gwen Samuel, and I'm here in the space of a mom today. Very specifically a black mom. You can see that by the visuals, but I want to talk in that lens. I'm also the founder and the president and founder of the Connecticut Parents Union. I want to start off by saying, as context, today there are an estimated 30,000 officers now in schools across America, up from roughly 100 in the 1970s. Although the stated purpose of these officers is to maintain a sense of safety, a very troubling consequence is greater arrest rates and referrals for minor disruptive behaviors, with especially harsh results for girls of color. According to the 2013-2014 data from the U.S. Department of Education, black girls are 2 to 6 times more likely to be referred to law enforcement on school grounds as white girls, and black girls are almost 4 times as likely to get arrested at school. Disparities affecting Latinas are especially severe in elementary school, where they are 2.7 times more likely to be arrested than young white girls. In light of this data, schools and districts must work to improve interactions between girls of color and school resource officers, striving to keep girls of color safe and supported in schools and reduce disproportionate rates of contact in the justice system. That is the context that I am here as a mom. My daughter had a fight. 2 girls wanted to jump her. I was notified from the school the day before that the girls wanted to jump her. The school said they tried to do a mediation. They couldn't resolve it, so they said they wanted to send the kids home. I agreed, because if you don't know how to keep the school safe, you separate, we regroup, and let's figure out a safety plan. That didn't happen. A fight occurred in the cafeteria in Platt School. And the reason why I'm naming the school is because if you Google my school, this new construction school of over $100,000, there have been fights ongoing in the schools. Yet, when it came to asking for checks and balances, talking to me, they're telling me cameras don't work. You can't have a new construction and no working camera. Since this happened March 1st, May 21st, 2 mothers ended up fighting because of a bullying incident in the school. The parents were arrested. That's May 21st of this year. May 17th, a 13-year-old girl was brutally beaten, a girl of color, was brutally beaten at a New Haven high school. May 30th, 10 students arrested after Ansonia High School. Then in addition to that, there was a school fighting ring in another city, which is a more affluent city. And yet, if you read every single argument, every article, there was a mediation. Somebody is going to get hurt or, God forbid, killed. There was a quote from a Texas student on May 18th, and she says, quote, "It has been happening everywhere," she said. I always kind of felt like eventually it's going to happen here too. No child should have to go to school knowing that the likelihood that violence will occur, that there's a potential for them getting to be hurt, is the norm. Violence is not supposed to be the norm in the schools. I appreciate Senator Winfield, because when it happened to my daughter, I'm a tough love mama, and I believe no is a good word. So if my daughter was at fault here, or if there was questionable behaviors, my family and those who know me and the school district know I'm about accountability, period, to include parents. When I spoke to Senator Winfield, he mentioned something called a Memorandum of Understanding. There is a public act, not number 168, that 2015, that says there's supposed to be an agreement between local school districts and the police department. yet I couldn't find it anywhere. So as the State Board of Education, I am asking, I'm making very specific ask. So yes, that's why this may be emotional. I am coming with solutions. You should want to know every memorandum of understanding that is happening when there's a school resource officer in the school, because you have the ultimate responsibility of all 500,000 plus students within the state of Connecticut. I went to my superintendent, and for the record, Mark Benigni is a great superintendent. I remember him from the mayor. But business is business, children are children. This is not personal, this is business. When I asked for the memorandum of understanding, we had one from 1999 before the law even went to play. So I took that into account. There was no law. In 2018, I asked for a copy of it, and that was back in March, waiting for a lieutenant to sign. If you are not clear about the roles of responsibility for hall monitors, school climate officers, and officers, how do people know what to do when there is a crisis, when the roles and expectations are not clear? And here's another incident where you don't communicate with parents and community and families. You cannot run the schools in isolation of families and community, because there is a role I must play to ensure my child is safe, that the school she attends is safe, and that she is held accountable to her responsibility in the school. That is not your role. You are loco parentis. You act as the parent when I am not there, but you are not the parent. And then when you see this many fights in less than a month, that is over almost 24 kids. And you cannot just look at the count of the student. This fight happened in a cafeteria. So that means not just my child, not just the other children, but all 200 and 300 children become at risk. So I am asking this board to, number one, to want to know these memorandums of understandings. I do believe that they should be part of your website, because it is an agreement with local school districts. And you are ultimately responsible. And yes, local school districts have autonomy, but at the end of the day, the Supreme Court ruled on the CCJEF, that lawsuit, that the state is still ultimately responsible for these students, and you cannot delegate your responsibility. That's number one. Number two, I am asking us to look at racial profiling, because the report that I submitted to the state board this morning is a report from Georgetown School of Law and Poverty. I know I got time, has been up. And then the Black National Justice, Women's Justice. It's a Georgetown report. I sent it to the board to review, because you cannot tell us to accept your data, and then when there are other data that shows we have problems in Connecticut, you can ignore it. I'm asking you to review the Georgetown report, because black children, from what I've learned, they feel that they're allowed to be have fighting school and no interventions. So the last thing is, you need to look at racial profiling, because we have a law on the books about racial profiling in the community. And what makes us think that if racial profiling is happening in the community, that it's not happening in the hallways? They're the same law enforcement agencies. Again, doesn't mean we have a great law enforcement, doesn't mean we doesn't have great educators and administrations. But we, as adults, have an obligation to ensure that every single child has a safe learning environment. And we all must take some responsibility for every fight that's happening in these schools if we're not holding districts accountable, if there's not effective mediation plans, and there's not a safety plan in place. So I thank you for listening to me. I will be back. I was off the grid for 90 days. I am back, because this is unacceptable.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We do miss you when you don't come.
I'm sure you do. Have a great one. Thank you very much.
That concludes that part of public participation.